Good evening. Welcome to Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. We're with you now. We're with you to the end. We always push the end off to a very, very long time as far as we can. That's why we're here. Compliments of that channel here in downtown Toronto in this wonderful studio. Not too far from the mayor's office. Mayor of Toronto has been an international sensation of late, but all of a sudden he just dropped off the newspaper pages as well. You'd almost think it was a conspiracy. Conspiracy to twist and manipulate your mind, to take you away from where they steal the money in Ottawa to the Sideshow Bob here in Toronto. But of course, everybody knows that now. This was a media-sponsored coup d'etat. They went into some of the final swings on CFRB radio where the mayor and his brother have a talk show, and they contradicted what was in the media. See, when you can have access to the media, then you can go back and forth. They just can't paint the picture and leave it the way they like it to be seen. So they said in the newspapers that he was deleting emails. And they were promptly had their nose rubbed in the dirt saying, no. The system does not delete emails. It's not set up for that. It can't. So they got caught in a lie. So then everything else they probably said could be a lie, an attempted coup d'etat via the press. It can happen that easy. But we changed the channel in the big matrix of media. Now all of a sudden, Senator from Ottawa is saying, I think it's Marjorie Le Breton, is saying that we have to look in all the expense accounts of the senators. So there they go. See, they have the big spotlight shined in one place as a diversion. Now they've taken it back to shine it on another place. Still nobody's looking for the $3.1 billion that kind of wasn't accounted for properly, but that's okay. You fall for it every time. So Mayor Ford had a prayer, and his prayer was answered. He got a new staff. The guy in the picture with him that's supposed to be at this drug session was shot to death. And his prayer was very old-fashioned and simple. My rod and my staff comfort me. As one is blown away and the new people come in to find or delete emails. There's going to be a big anniversary coming up. Actually a couple, really. June 8th is going to be the anniversary of the USS Liberty. So there's going to be quite the thing going on in Daytona Beach, Florida. They're going to broadcast live a show called We Cannot Be Silent from 6 to 6:30 Eastern Time with a Larry Pinkney interviewing Ron Kukul, a USS Liberty survivor and petty officer in charge of body recovery and identification, on a website called UnitedWeStrike.com. A free screening of The Loss of Liberty will be down at Steve's Famous Diner at 1560 South Nova Road in Daytona Beach. Boy, we wish we had a budget to go to that. And of course, for information, Central Florida, FLA VFP, Central FLA VFP at AOL.com to get in talk with Veterans for Peace. And maybe we can finally make some peace out of these debacles, because the men are always sacrificed in these horrible, horrible adjustments. They committed the same sin SEAL Team 6 committed. They knew too much, and they were just eliminated. That was an intelligence gathering ship. The first part of the ship to get hit by the Israeli aircraft were the communications rooms. Most of the crew had absolutely no idea what top secret work was done there, but they knew who shot first in a war a long, long, long time ago. And they weren't allowed to live to tell the tale, because we have to vilify one side as opposed to the other. And then in the strange paradox of relations with your neighbor, our neighbor, the United States of America, whether corporation or country, still has a lot of people in it that are our neighbors. So a Canadian church gets together and raises 20,000 kilograms, that's like 44,000 pounds in American, of food and other things for relief supplies for the tornado victims in Moore. So of course, what would happen? He'd be stopped at the border and sent back. So the Department of Homeland Security and whatever else they have, Customs, said they have to go over and label everything in the truck, do the proper NAFTA paperwork, and itemize everything in it and where it comes from. A lot of it was fresh picked vegetables from the fields around Leamington, Ontario. Heinz Canada put in some stuff. ADT Transportation gave them a refrigerated truck. As of the time I scooped this at the end of May, it was still parked waiting to get across the border. 2 skids of rice donated by Dainty Rice of Windsor. They were right on top of things because they do this trans-border shipment all the time, so they could get the paperwork all the time. And the ultimate culprit is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration asking for this documentation because Obama didn't declare this a disaster area, so it's just a regular shipment across the border. And you have to wonder sometimes, as you know, we don't have a rubber hammer here that you can hit yourself in the head, try to make some sense out of all this stuff. But you have to wonder. I know a few years back in the Bush leagues, there was a reciprocal arrangement between a town in Quebec, Canada, and a town in New York City, but because of natural obstacles, it was way faster for this fire truck to come from Quebec across the border and deal with a certain part of a certain small town, rather than them to get around all these natural obstacles. So there was a reciprocal arrangement between the 2 countries to share fire services. So the Americans had a fire. The boys jump on the fire truck and parlez-vous down to the border, and they wouldn't let them cross. And you just have to get that hammer and whack yourself ahead in a couple times. Excuse me there, son, there's places in your country that are burning down, right? Department of Homeland Security, and you're stopping us at the border. I guess the firemen weren't carrying their passports or whatever they needed to cross the border. Like, they're stupid. And then they're so stupid. I guess that's where you spell it differently, with 2 O's. S-T-O-O-P-I-D, stupid. You know, a long, long time before that, on the other side of the fence, Toronto burned down. And the fire department from Rochester, well, there's no phones back then. They just saw the smoke across the lake and said, wow, that's got to be a good one. We know what fires are all about. And they just came over of their own accord. Nobody stopped them at the border. They were more than glad they came. That's what neighbors are all about. Unless we live in the world of the super paranoid. So this gentleman here, Chris Hedges, if we could show the screen, has a nice little saying. I like this when somebody sent it to me. We live in a nation where doctors destroy health, lawyers destroy justice, universities destroy knowledge, governments destroy freedom, the press destroys information, religion destroys morals, and our banks destroy the economy. If that doesn't sum up the state of affairs on the planet Earth in one short, succinct few words, nothing does. Brilliant piece there. Brilliant. Now the big news is we got a game changer. Obama's given up basketball. He's going to get into street acting. He's better at it. Make sure there's enough blood out and the actors don't get caught. No, the game changer is they're saying in France that they have discovered that sarin gas was used. Of course, it doesn't say who did it. It's just where they tested various things they found sarin gas. A little article in the BBC that kind of went along with this. Iraq uncovers. You remember Iraq, there was a big invasion there once, and then some people went home, and we got to pay for the rest of the people to go home next. Uncovers Al-Qaeda chemical weapons plot. 5 men have been arrested. Military intelligence monitored their activities for 3 months. They had workshops to build chemical agents, including sarin, mustard gas, and they were also using those remote-controlled toy airplanes as delivery systems. So the group is another offshoot of Al-Qaeda, responsible for detonating crude chlorine bombs in Iraq between October 2006 and June 2007. U.S. and Iraqi troops subsequently killed those militants and seized much of their stockpiled weapons. Much isn't all. It means a lot, but not all. So those things were still game changers floating around somewhere. And then, of course, we have to bring Osama bin Laden into this because 5 days before he killed, not in the 2001, in the fake killing in 2011, he urged members of this group's offshoot in Yemen when using poison, be careful of doing it without enough study of all the aspects, including political and media reaction. Right. But speaking of poison, we got Mayor Bloomberg. He's poison in his own right, but somebody says that he got a letter which goes to a mail sorting place that he'll never see, never touch, never handle. So that's how you know you got to be like totally in your drawer stupid. 2 O's, maybe 3 for this guy, that you're going to send somebody like that a letter laced with poison. It's going to be opened by some kind of Joe Low worker. So anyway, he gets this thing, and it's supposed to have ricin in it, and the whole reason behind it is because he's for gun control, and he's going to go to the gun lobby and give him a good whipping and all this sort of thing. But nothing happened to anybody that had anything to do with this letter, except for some of the workers who do the screening of letters. So when it got to the first workers, this deadly poison that makes your socks drop off did nothing to them. But when it gets down the line behind closed doors somewhere, well then there's a little bit of something going on with this letter. I find that a little hard to believe. But I find a lot of the things the New World Order does a little hard to believe. It's just absolutely bizarre. Here in Toronto too, while we were talking about this low down, no good for nothing mayor or something like that, and the no good for nothing media, well, one of the fans sent me something last week that just, you know, you gotta scream from the rooftops. So this is our screaming from the rooftops. Toronto starts microchipping children. So last Saturday you could get into the Market of Beast system. City Councillor Maria Agamari sent out her usual information letter with an unusual addendum. It was the Mason chip kit. So the conspiracy theory they would have laughed at you, when they have. I talked about this on radio stations in the 1990s. You couldn't imagine the noise that came out of the hosts on some of these stations when you start talking. They're going to microchip children. Like, duck, here comes a whole flock of them. Get the straitjacket, call the ambulance, lock them up, whipping nutso. Time has changed. I don't have to eat my words. So eventually they'll probably make it mandatory if you attend a government school. So here's the blurb. I copied the screen saved the thing, the top part of it, with this on here, so you can see it, because, you know, maybe if things start to pick up a little bit, she'll pull that down and pretend it never happened. But it happened. That was going to happen June 1st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Ramsey Shrine Temple, 3100 Keel Street. And this is a letter that goes with it to say, you know, a big sigh of relief that you can chip your children. So what's the fear? What's the big deal? It's not like they let all these pedophiles and molesters out of prison as a Hegelian dialectic curve to get you to be fearful to walk into the next trap. Well, I guess they do. But it's the history. What happened in the past? Well, in this book that a good buddy of mine read for me when I was working at the armored car company, I'd be counting the money, he'd be reading me this book, IBM and the Holocaust, how America's most powerful corporation helped Nazi Germany count the Jews, yes. Count their money too. So basically what you got, I call IBM, I burned many, is you were getting a number system put on your arm. It was from the computer cards. These are one of the original computer cards. And there'd be a series of numbers on there, and those numbers would be transferred to your arm. The original machine was a mechanical machine, the Hollerith machine, where the new ones are, of course, computer electronic things. So that's what it is. That's what this microchip is. It's a system of numbers to put down your skills, your education, your religion, whatever they need for future reference. See, this is much nicer than the nasty tattooing on the arm, and probably much less painful too. You only have to get the one shot. So in here you can have an electronic tattoo for your children, so they can be monitored and recorded wherever they go, because they just might escape. From where? Well, a sidebar story was, well, you know, the American Red Cross and FEMA are teaching kids in American schools that in an emergency you go to the FEMA camp. You know how much time it saves us from rounding you up? You just line up like good Nazis and go to the FEMA camp. It's for your safety. And they're probably going to relocate you. I think they said that lie a few times in the last war too. And there's probably reams of people to write your parents about where they sent you. Just like they did the last time. It's the mark of the beast system. Then of course an Australian billionaire, Gina Reinhardt, we mentioned her shortly in the previous show. And then I was trying to find an article that goes with it. They were all taken down already. So David Icke was the last guy, maybe his link is still there, that, you know, she wanted to sterilize those damn inferior, I guess you can't say racist, creatures. Oh, here comes my ride. Off to the FEMA camp. So teach your children well, because you're the only thing that can stand in the way. When you understand the greater dynamic of how these computer companies, like IBM, now Microsoft and Google and such like that, are the mark of the beast system. They are the military-industrial complex. They are the ones to get you. They also have some new things. This one's kind of cool. This is a microchip sticker. So you might teach the kids, you know, take all these stickers, like little sticker tattoos, put them on your body. So this one lasts about 2 weeks. You cover it with like a Band-Aid spray or something like that. And this will do everything you need to do. It's an MC10 electronic tattoo called BioStamp. Isn't it lovely? Made by Motorola. You gotta love it. And it can record all your passwords and tell everybody where you are and maybe give you directions to the FEMA camp and all those other nice things. You know, nothing ever changes really in the world. It's just new to you because you never heard of it before. Big Brother is watching your kids. Florida school districts scan students' irises without parental permission. So they set up this program in Polk County, Florida to say that they're going to scan everybody's irises so we can always know where the children are. So you'll know exactly when they got on the bus, what bus they got on, and all that sort of thing. They were supposed to send a letter home to the parents, but they did it first, and then the parents got the letter, and some of them were irate. The company's called Stanley Convergent Security Solutions, and they are using the iSwipe nanotechnology. So a lot of them had their nose rubbed in the sand, their butts rubbed into the sand too by a lot of parents with these Orwellian programs launched in the name of protecting our children, like the one in Texas where they put an RFID radio chip into student ID cards. It's the same chip used by the Department of Agriculture to track livestock. And that's what you are. You are livestock. You're livestock to the United States corporation. You are. Your birth certificate says that. We have a nice little video on that for you. Can we play the American National Anthem while we're talking about the Marine sings the song? Because he sings one of the forbidden or lost verses of the Star-Spangled Banner. It just kind of fell off the table for a lot of lifetimes. And people in the crowd don't even recognize it as part of the American National Anthem. It's amazing. The words will tell you why. Someone put God in it.
Lewis.
One question was raised about how we teach our young people, and I'm a former Marine, and I became aware that there are 2 verses, and we need to hear the second verse, which says, "Oh, thus be it ever, when free men shall stand between their loved homes and the war's desolation, blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that has made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just, and this be our motto. motto, in God is our trust, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's what I'm talking about.
See, Kokesh should have sang that at that marijuana rally.
That was easy.
And it takes a good old Marine. It's probably disappeared now. They probably, you know, hustled him away when nobody was looking, took him off to a FEMA camp. But at least they'll have a interesting version of the Star-Spangled Banner to listen to in the morning as you're routed out of your bed and they check your microchips. There was a Google Doodle this week that just absolutely, you know, I guess if you got to change your underwear, you got to change your underwear. It's the Julius Richard Petri Google Doodle, the coming pandemic. He invented the Petri dish you used in science class to put your biology experiments in, something you culture viruses and bacteria with. It's going to be a party. He studied at the Kaiser Wilhelm Academy, part of the Kaiser Wilhelm Society. They made all kinds of things like, you know, sarin and goody stuff for the Germans in World War I and World War II. So we're looking at this implying a false flag operation coming down the road, because the ones they've used in the past, like Sandy Hook, the Boston bombings, the beheading, and all this sort of thing, just didn't go over too well. People, just sham productions. Did anybody give us $10 million we asked for last week so we could do some of these productions? No, no, no. Oh well. You're just not going to have a good street theater unless you use the experience and stage management of that channel here. So, you know, I guess they're just going to go to Bilderberg soon and forget about us guys, you know. But it's not working, so they got to play the pandemic card, because if they give out something to you that scares the living bejesus out of you, then you're going to panic and acquiesce a little faster, because you're going to see a few people drop around you. But this plays right into the hand of the Illuminati card game, the Center for Disease Control. They're going to release a bioagent and kick us in the keister. They were right about many others, the Gulf oil spill, 9/11, the Japan earthquake, the tsunami. It's all linked to this. Kaiser Wilhelm Society found the broad support of the Rockefeller Foundation, and just in a nutshell, of course, when they have the epidemic, then we'll have to be quarantined, and they practiced that in Boston a bit with the lockdown. So this is going to be a party. It's all part of the master plan. But it takes a great degree of faith to accept that we're not going to succumb to this. As a free thinker, you're a very dangerous object. So you can resist this very, very much by just seeing the holes through it. This great book here, this is where the pandemic that's coming up is MERS. Used to be called SARS. It's a follow-on from ARS, and that's in this book, United States and Biological Warfare. One of the authors is a York University professor here in Toronto. And the Americans dropped that stuff in leaflet bombs on the North Koreans and the Chinese to, kill the inferior races so they could have the land. And then this is just carried on, carried on, carried on. I'm worried about the circles that were in that Google Doodle because, of course, it looks like the Olympic rings. And you even get 6 of them. 1 per continent or something. So as we flip down here, we got this little map that changes with different ideas of continents. The color coding may not be the same as in the Google Doodle. This is just a cute picture that came with the continents Wikipedia entry. But when you look at the fact that 2 of the colors have 2 dishes, well, maybe they're going to double up on that one. Who's going to get it and how? Well, I guess it's got to be an inferior species of some sort. And then, of course, our billionaire gets together with other billionaires. They talk about this population reduction control. Hint, hint. Nobody got the 1918 flu that worked in the cinnamon factories. That could save your bacon. What happens to these monsters when they keep on these deadly paths? You pull a stunt like this one, they can do a false flag in the street. You do like some kind of genocide creating pandemic, well then you get what El Duce gets. You get strung up on the meat hook. And the funny thing was, in the Twilight language, where MERS has gone to in the latest reports we heard is Italy. So just as a joke, I talk about El Duce, and guess what? It's in Duce's backyard right now. How big will it grow? It's difficult to say. It's going to be a party. The National Post yesterday, today's Tuesday, that was Monday, June the 4th, had the typical thing, like you can't always depend on the Google Doodle because somebody reads them and tells everybody what's inside. But I know these old ones too. I used to work on those like ages ago. Great Expectations. So to most people, that's just gibberish on the front page, a cute little picture. To me, I know what it is. It's the word jumble. We have eyes to see and ears to hear, but we don't use the eyes. I use the eyes, and then if somebody's got ears to hear it, I'll tell you. Because they've done this many, many times in the past. So one of the things that comes out of this, my first attempt was react to GPS Texan. Then I played with it a little more and found G, expect train to see. That was just an introductory. Then we really started to play with it. Then we get Greece, stop Axia TNT. Axia refers to gold moths that usually occur in southern Europe. They feed on a species of Euphorbia, which almost sounds like Europhobia. This is the plant. Well, this plant, it was the Greek physician, named after a Greek physician, King Juba Ilof Numidia, who married the daughter of Antony and Cleopatra. Supposed to be a good laxative too. But is this a cure or a hint at the fact that we'll be needing doctors and cures? That this TNT is going to explode somehow? Because what is Axia? Axia is a boutique investment bank in Cyprus. They're big on energy. There's also an Axia Group Insurance. Axia translates from Greek to mean value, capable, merit, worth, and worthiness. Are we going to see a flight to gold because of the gold moth? Is that a hint, hint, hint? And then, of course, the next one we work on is Paris next to get ace. This is an old playing card from the era. The word ace comes from the old French as, meaning a unit, from the name of a small Roman coin. It was meant the side of one dice. It was generally brought up as a sign of bad luck. So France is going to get the ace. In Vietnam, they use these playing cards to tell the Vietnamese to give up and go back to the south. And then, of course, they killed you and you didn't get a chance to give up. They put the playing cards in your mouth and leave the body about. So I'd have to say this is a very serious attempt, pre-Bilderberg, to warn the people who know what these things mean. They have the advantage to know what's implied, like how to arrange the letters and stuff. They can be told in advance because it's something new to us. We have to break into it from the get-go, and we do. Hillary Clinton and the State Department went after one man, Raymond Maxwell. He was a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, and he was held responsible for the Benghazi incident, even though he had nothing to do with it in any way, shape, or form. But he had one terrible skeleton in his closet. He knew Ambassador Chris Stevens. He also had a top-secret security clearance. He was forced on what they call administrative leave December the 18th. He wasn't punished, he was just put on this leave. Says he has never seen the classified portions of the ARB report on this attack. Then one of the big mistakes they put in his reason to be taken off the team was that he did not read his daily classified briefing. So he had access to the intelligence, and he didn't read it. So by putting him on this administrative leave, he can't go back to work, and he loses his top secret security clearance, so he can't look at these documents. And what's important about that? He knew Chris Stevens. So if he read this confidential thing from the get-go, well, he'd be dead, because they would have killed him. But he'd know the truth instantly. It would completely, instantly click in what happened. So they can never let him see these documents. So even though he has nothing to do with anything officially in the chain of command and what happened there, he's getting the blade. So he'll never find out the truth, because he might tell. He wrote a ciphered poem, The Queen's Henchman. Of course, it's got to be about Hillary. Request the pleasure of your company at a lynching to be held. And he's implying that that's his, but it also implies too cryptically that he's talking about Stevens. A blood sacrifice to divert the hounds, to appease the gods, to cleanse our filth, satisfy our guilty consciences. Arrive promptly at sunset, and justice will be swift. There will be no trial, no review of evidence, no due process, and no accountability. Dress warmly, a chilling effect will instantly envelop. Foggy bottom, extrajudicial, total impunity, a kangaroo court in a banana republic. And the ones being lynched, who cares? They are pawns at a game, our game, all suckers, all fools, all knaves who volunteered to serve. What difference at this point does it make? I think she read that. In the event of inclement weather or the Queen's incapacitation, her henchmen will carry out this lynching as ordered, as planned. Adieu, Ambassador. And then this one ended up to be very, very popular. Our good friend Stephanie in the States posted this on her website and news and all that sort of thing. It really acquired life because, you know, I have a place where I file stuff online as a backup copy. And I don't tell anybody about it. It's just there. People find it here and there when they Google and look into stuff and whatever. And this one just, you know, pyramid power for that. Danny the Boston Bagman, because the whole thing about this Boston affair is the Florida police shot this guy down here, Ebrahim Todashev, 27. Now, the first thing I look is, the guy's got a boxer nose. There's no doubt about that. These other guys were into fighting. So the guy whose car was allegedly hijacked, there were allegations that he had a crap load of money in that car, in cash. And all kinds of stories about who was in the car. They were being followed by a Honda, you know, which of the two bombers was with him. Sometimes he was alone, then he jumps out of the car, he gets away. But there's a bigger picture to that. I get the feeling that he was our doppelganger. A man was seen coming out alive from the big shootout. He wasn't afraid to meet the FBI. I think there's a reason for that. He was working for the FBI. He was their patsy, but he didn't realize that they had to get rid of him now because he knew too much. He was supposed to go back to Chechnya the next day. So he was taken out with extreme prejudice. But then they do that to the ambassador and SEAL Team 6 and the USS Liberty. So the guys in the FBI who made an arrest, that's them there, at the Boston bombing, Special Agent Christopher Lorick and Stephen Shaw, you know, they got the suspended sentence. They're rappelling out of a helicopter, somebody cuts the rope, they fall down, they die. And they were dropped from their training program. As why? They knew too much. You look at this picture, like it's obvious, this Sarnev is photoshopped in, and most likely this one too. They made it all up. They make everything all up. They're good at it. And like I said about, you know, an FM talk show host that I was listening to, says people believe us. We speak with authority, and we're on the radio. And who's the big man from D.C. without a birth certificate? Barry Soetoro, sitting back, laughing, changing games. The good men die and are taken out. And even the bad men, like, you know, you got this Zero Dark 30 movie, Best Picture candidate for 2012, the Obama propaganda film, historical fiction, about the fact that Obama was supposed to be killed in May of 2011, but he really died on December the 15th, 2001, and was buried in an unmarked grave in Afghanistan. That was reported all over the world. So this film builds up on the torture ethos. But torture doesn't get any information because you'll say anything to stop the torture. So usually you confess falsely. So they put this in there to say, see, we got this tip from torture, so torture is justified. Unlawful confinement is justified. Then they follow it through and murder is justified. See, they're Satanists. Everything is justified to them. But it didn't work. They don't get into the fact that most of this intelligence that they get from torture doesn't work. And they change the game plan here for Obama because everybody stops talking about his fake birth certificate, troops in Pakistan, not closing Guantanamo. So this article is from Press TV, Jim Fetzer. He's a 9/11 scholar for truth. Had a little trouble with them a long time ago, and a lot of other people, because I read between the lines. I read the codes. I understand the pictographic language. I know about the Twilight language. I'm a nut, but I'm right. And a lot of people just fled like fleas when you get into the gas chamber. I ain't going with those guys. But I see through all this stuff. No word of a lie. Alex Jones wanted to hire me as a writer, but then when I started working on these codes to say what's going to happen tomorrow and next week, he headed for the exit. Maybe he already knew. It's hard to say. You never know who's CIA. They don't wear a big badge to say I'm CIA. So they also took out Osama bin Laden's role in Charlie Wilson's War. I like Charlie Wilson's War, nice movie, but they took out a good part of the truth. Half a truth is a whole lie. So he gets into this article here about how this Cold War and the demise of the Soviet Union, the military-industrial complex, implied that we have to have a new enemy, something to keep us excited and on the move, and they invented terror for that. And then if you didn't cooperate, they give you a little bit of terror, like they did in London in 7/7, the Bali bombing, and they tried to do one here in Toronto. I was reading that in the codes months before it happened. We were circling all around it. We knew what areas they were going to do it in, and we knew they were going to do it for a fact. It was just lucky one of my agents stumbled onto the place where they were unloading explosives. And we blew their cover. And it didn't happen here. Isn't it good you got a nut watching around the docks late at night sometimes? Knowing how the game is played at the highest levels? We would have been sucked into a war. Maybe dozens or hundreds of our fellow citizens would have been killed. Toronto would be the G20 police state on steroids for years, and you probably would have lost dozens of billions in terror money, or war money, or whatever. Brilliant strategy, it works every time. Al-Qaeda really means base. It was a name given to the base in Afghanistan. Lies, lies, lies. But a great Russian defector wrote a book, New Lies for Old, and they always have new lies for old. When they get caught in an old lie, they come up with a new lie, a bigger one, a better one. Bin Laden blew himself up with a suicide belt after Navy SEAL shot him in the thigh, claims his former bodyguard Nabil Naim Abdul Fattah. I think I even got that out. He accused President Barack Obama of lying in his account of victory. Bin Laden always wore an explosive belt. Well, because he's already dead at the time, we know this guy's lying too. So Obama's lying because they faked this. That was another big stage production. We just didn't get the news at 6 special feature like we had with Boston. But they faked it. So they say because he was blown up, well, that's why they had to dump his body in the sea. And then, as we've said before, the operation was called Operation Geronimo. And we showed the clip from Conspiracy Theory, the movie, if you remember that, where Mel Gibson goes back after he's allegedly dead to look at his long-lost love, and their word was Geronimo. This guy was released from prison in March 2011, and they were probably torturing him, and he may have been the guy who told them that he's in Abbottabad. He made something up, and they used it. Because this guy just seems to be right in the crux of things. He was once the right arm of Ayman al-Zawahiri, who now heads Al-Qaeda. He was a person who sent Mohammed Atta, the lead test pilot, to Afghanistan. The shooter is supposed to be Matt Bissonnette of SEAL Team 6. Well, there is no SEAL Team 6. Written under the pseudonym of Mark Owen. New lies for old. I guess we'll do a quickie on the Northwest Mounted Police Google Doodle. We didn't have time in the past. It's a great history of Canada, the March West, the forming of our nation. But of course, the whole thing was like a ruse. We made up stuff that Americans were flying a flag at Fort Whoop-Up. Unscrupulous whiskey traders were causing bedlam. And then when they got there, they found out that wasn't true. But that's okay. We had to have a national police force anyway, and that was a step in the right direction. Some Americans did come close north of the border and cause something called the Cypress Creek Massacre. They were rounded up and tried. It was one of those things where, you know, you can go across the border, right? The Northwest Mounted Police went south, got them, brought them back. I don't know if there was any extradition involved in that. The commanding officer of the Northwest Mounted Police was a justice of the peace. I'm sure they liked powers like that. Inspector James Morrow Walsh became good friends with Sitting Bull after the massacre. And he treated the Indians fairly, so he was the good news of the doodle. The government replaced him, of course, and brought in an idiot who tried to starve them into submission. The Riel Rebellion happened. Are we going to see a rebellion here in Canada? It's the Battle of Fish Creek. A lot of people don't study that older part, but it is, you know, our past is our future. Will this happen? Will there be another Louis Riel to lead us into conflict? The gold rush, another implication of fiat currencies are going to collapse. You're going to need precious metals. The Mounties were very keen on making sure you had what was called a ton of goods when you went into the Yukon. You don't have a ton of goods, you don't get in. You don't have a ton of goods, you may not survive what's coming. Then, of course, there was the labor relations struggles. All the guys were hopping on a train to go to Ottawa, the On to Ottawa trek, and there were labor riots. It was labor strife in Winnipeg, and then, of course, this one was in 1935 in Regina, the New World Order. So you didn't have the right to vote when you worked at one of these government camps. You had no right for first aid supplies, no right for compensation to injuries, and no right to vote. I don't ever remember hearing that anywhere. So they wanted Section 98 of the Criminal Code changed to say that, you know, you could protest and jump up and down even if it was a bit violent. Because you can't vote and you can't rebel. So they just gun you down in the street or something like that. Well, that's, you know, freedom and democracy, right? Well, we got freedom and democracy when King Charles's head went into the basket. But they left that one out of most of the civics classes in school anyway. We got rid of them. It's the Antichrist system that is kind of up and about. So the boys hopped on the trains, they wanted to go and complain. They had a big one in Washington too back in the day. We showed pictures from that when they were burning down the town, having massive riots when they wouldn't pay the veterans their allotment. The police hid in an ice cream truck, or several ice cream trucks, and then came out and just waylaid the crowd. It was brutal. But these guys were tough manual laborers too. They fought back. People were killed. This was, as we say in Tom Morello's song, "You and I are missing persons till we're counted in the streets." They were counting people in the streets. But then, of course, you're right, you know, you think we got freedom. Well, this comes up to Bilderberg's secret power group. Well, they're meeting June 6th. Nothing's changed. You want rights, you got to take to the street. Women got their right to vote when they protested. The gays got rights when they got off their ass and protested. Black people got rights when they stood up and protested. That could almost be a formula. My grandfather was arrested in the Regina riots way back then. He just went to see what was going on, he said. Then he had to fight, you know, those dirty Nazi bastards that formed the Bilderberg group in World War II. That's him on top of the number 5 up here, good old Frank. Wounded in the leg. His 2 buddies killed when a mortar round fell on top of them in the Netherlands. So the New World Order's idea of work for you was working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day for as little as possible, with a pail beside your machine. That's your future if they pass these free trade laws and a lot of stuff. So if you want to maintain the right, you got to get off your ass and protest a little bit. That's part of the equation. There's nothing to be ashamed about standing up for your rights. Google and the NSA connection. So Google is just in bed with the National Security Agency. Their people go back and forth. They've even partnered out and, have a scholarly paper here, the Google NSA Alliance Developing Cybersecurity Policy at Internet Speed. So they have their AdWords things that just spy on you and create a profile for the National Security Agency to look at you. So I guess some of the things to add to your profile is rope, nooses and rope. And then throw them a curveball with gay porn, and then rope. And then maybe the latest repeating semi-automatic AR-15 variant. Pop-up targets for your favorite politician or something, just weigh it down a little bit, rebellion, strikes, stuff like that. Then they got to spend more time shoveling to say, wow, there's millions of them. Revealed Google's links between British politicians, David Cameron and George Osborne. Eric Schmidt, the head of Google, who's also going to the Bilderberg meeting, trusted business advisor to Mr. Cameron. So they keep going in, well, they got to block websites. Well, they do their best. They always come up with something about child porn, and because of that, they're going to block websites. No, they're not. They're going to spy on everybody. So Rachel Whetstone, Google's top global spinner, was a number 10 Downing Street aide and was director of communications for conservative leader Michael Howard. This woman married Steve Hilton, the t-shirt wearing guru, Cameron's close friend and former director of strategy at number 10. They call them the Notting Hill set of conservatives. Prime Minister is godfather to Miss Whetstone's younger son. Mr. Hilton was a godfather to Ivan Cameron, the late eldest child of David and Samantha. Amy Fisher was once Google's PR chief for European affairs. She's got a job bagged a job advising Justice Secretary Chris Grayling. So they're all in it like this, the military-industrial complex. We think of them as the nice fuzzy-wuzzy Google guys, computer companies, the machine that's in front of everybody in every room in every house. But in reality, it's the military-industrial complex putting the rope around your neck. Internet speculation rife over identity of mystery pair involved in a number 10 Downing Street secret love affair as a PM crisis. Of course, the media won't reveal any of these two other consenting adult middle-aged figures involved in this. So the guy left the door open, the cops went to the bar, and this couple goes into 10 Downing Street to shag on the shag rug? I don't think so. Get the feeling, maybe Cameron and the missus were doing a little swapping or something like that. It's hard to say. Then the big news for people who follow storms is the storm chasers died. 3 storm chasers were among 13 people killed by the tornadoes. Tim Samaras, founder of a research company called TwistX, and his son, Paul, and their associate Carl Young were killed. National Geographic has quite the picture on this, chasing lightning. Wow, that's a dark storm. There we go. And now you just look at that. Not that we're suspicious of everything, but I'm suspicious of everything. Look at that big-ass truck and trailer, man. Look at the stuff on there. Look at the radar dome up here, all the equipment, all the stuff in the back. Like, you could probably work on something to, rival Los Alamos in the back of this thing. That's what got me suspicious. I was watching this video 99 sent me about this thing. And the guy's talking about this camera with like 180 million lenses or something like that. And you look at this thing, it looks like a cyclotron. So this is a conspiracy show. We can have conspiracies. Were these guys really working for the intelligence agencies? Bob Ballard was when he was looking for the Titanic. He was really looking for sunken nuclear submarines. It's all over. Mainstream media fixes everything for these guys. Can we show the video on the tornado? And
Among the 13 people killed in the Oklahoma twister were 3 men deeply involved in tornado research. ABC's Ginger Z reports on the storm chasers who knew the risks.
The tornadoes moved in quickly, the second time in 2 weeks, and they were deadly. The interstates packed with terrified families, drivers trying to escape before the tornadoes hit. They had just survived the tornado the week before. The mother and child killed, pulled from their car by the twister. And we have learned of 3 more lives lost. 3 veteran storm chasers now among the dead. Tim Samaras, his son Paul, and their colleague Carl Young, all trying to document the storm. Tim was found seatbelted in his car. The others pulled from the car by the tornado. One was found a half-mile away.
Time 7:45, snail deployed, large tornado.
Tim, who led the team, was an esteemed scientist. In the storm chasing community, he was known not only as one of the best, but as one of the most cautious.
He would show genuine concern of our safety going in, and we lost someone that probably has already saved countless lives with his research.
He chased because he wanted to learn, to improve warning systems and help meteorologists better forecast tornadoes in the future. Just this past year, we documented one of his scientific expeditions, Tim and his son taking us along. One of their many goodbyes to his wife, Kathy.
See you later.
Have a good trip.
Yep.
Much of his recent research funded by National Geographic. In a statement, they said, "We are shocked and deeply saddened. He was a courageous and brilliant scientist who fearlessly pursued tornadoes and lightning in an effort to better understand these phenomena." On our trip, Samaras showed me his baby, the Kahuna, what could be the fastest camera in the world. Actually, 82 cameras in one. It helped him firsthand studying the birth of a lightning strike. Our journey took us 800 miles in 4 states, but he also knew the real dangers of doing this.
At times, I have mixed feelings about chasing these storms. On one hand, they are incredibly beautiful. On the other hand, these powerful storms can create devastating damage that change people's lives forever.
At the end of our chase, Tim told me it was his desire to know more, to inform us all, that fueled him to go out again.
I don't know how many storms I've seen in my lifetime, but every single one of them, I still get pretty excited. The little boy in me just wants to come out here and just watch and stare.
I know that he will be remembered as a great man, a wonderful husband, a scientist, and father. We hope that his research will live on forever and others will pick it up and we can keep learning more. Ginger Z, ABC News, El Reno, Oklahoma.
It's such a sad story, such a loss, and there's a picture on Twitter and Facebook that's getting a lot of play. We want to show it to you. Take a look at this. The storm chaser community went out and lined themselves up to form the initials of Tim Samaras, Paul Samaras, and Carl Young.
Okay.
They formed those initials.
That
They're
was
a great
interesting.
tribute there.
So is that kahuna a camera or part of some kind of mechanism to steer storms? We'll never know. Like SEAL Team 6, the Ambassador, USS Liberty guys, they just kill them, and you don't ever find out. Bilderberg meeting's coming up, June 6th to the 9th, Hertfordshire, England. Now what's important about June 6th? Why would the Bilderbergs want to have their meeting on June the 6th to start? Because it's the anniversary of D-Day. And then we can reverse wallop these people. So one of the little anecdotes I found in my little book that I finished reading now, Rat Lines, Soviet Spies, Nazi Priests, and the Disappearance of Adolf Hitler. You got to get this, baby. Page 160. Talks about this Nazi, never heard of this guy. Lifelong diplomat, spy, and banker. Devoted Nazi. Paul Leverkusen. Well, he was at the first Bilderberg meeting in 1954. You see, it's just to share ideas and talk without keeping an agenda or anything. He went as the president of the European Union. What European Union? They didn't even have, like, the coal trade treaty signed. Probably way back when. But he went as the president of the European Union, the Fourth Reich of the Antichrist. Now we have a lot of other people going to set up the Fourth Reich of the Antichrist. If you need to find the list, Bilderberg Meetings is on InfoWars. They got the whole list. Some of the big ones, the president of the European Commission, Jose Barroso. And then this one here, Olivier de Babenchov, Commander, Eurocorps. I guess they got an army too. Jeff Bezos, founder and CEO of Amazon. Clark Edmond, president, CEO of TD Bank Group. J. Michael Evans, vice chairman of Goldman Sachs. Timothy Geithner, former secretary of the Treasury. So you're never former when you're in the Bilderberg Group. You're still, you know, with Reich Finance, no problem. David E. Graham, chairman and CEO of the Washington Post Company. Well, that's maybe why we have to change the channel. You going to the Bilderberg meeting, Hugh? No, Hugh's not going. Even if they give us the $10 million, we're still not going. Simon Henry, chief financial officer, Royal Dutch Shell. Oh, yeah. That's why we started World War II, was for Royal Dutch Shell, because that nasty Stalin guy nationalized all those oil wells. We had to get them back, so we financed Hitler to get into power to, you know, like invade Russia and get all our stuff back. They're still in there. Thomas J. Jordan, chairman and governing board, Swiss National Bank. And our favorite, Henry A. Kissinger, chairman of Kissinger and Associates. If there ever was a guy to take over for the little corporal, it was him. At least he was a sergeant, though, in the Counterintelligence Corps. Jessica T. Matthews, president, Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Gotta love that word. Little piece of this, little piece of that, little piece of this. We're taking it over. Frank McKenna, Brookfield Asset Management. John McElwaith, editor-in-chief of The Economist. Mario Monti, former prime minister. Craig J. Mundy, senior advisor, CEO, Microsoft Corporation. Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrix of the Netherlands, chairman of Royal Dutch Shell. George Osborne, Chancellor of the Exchequer. Richard Pearl, American Enterprise Unit. David Petraeus, procurer of women, retired U.S. general. Robert S. Pritchard, chair of Tories LLP law firm. Heather Reisman, our bookstore girl. James Wolfenson, Eric Schmidt, Peter Sutherland, Peter Thiel, Peter Vosser, Brad Wall, Jacob Wallenbach, Galen Weston, James Wolfenson, David Wright, all the usual suspects. They're taking over the planet. They're bringing in the mark of the beast system. They own all our governments. Our leaders lick their boots and kiss their butts. You can change all that. It's very simple. They own all the corporate media and control what you think. You change the channel, you change the paradigm. You come here, come to our little cave, play with us. We'll show you lots of things. It's magic. We'll change the way you think, and then we can change the outcome. So we thank Hugh for doing his job. We thank that channel for being here. Come back again next week, Thursday. Same that time, same that channel, and we'll take up the battle again. Good night.
That was easy.